Okay, so get ready for this one, folks, because today we're going down a rabbit hole with just one source, a YouTube video transcript. It's a doozy. We're talking about adrenochrome.
Which, as you might have guessed, is deep in that world of conspiracy theories.
Oh, absolutely.
But this one's a little different.
Why is that?
Well, it's from this Spanish-Polish YouTube channel, and get this, they do hypnotic investigations. They use something called the Grafasi method.
Hypnotic investigation.
Yeah, it's supposed to, uncover hidden knowledge in past lives.
Ooh, okay, that's already got me intrigued.
Right.
So let's start with the basics. What is adrenochrome according to this transcript?
So they describe it as this chemical compound, C9H9NO3. It's supposedly produced by our bodies after an adrenaline rush.
After an adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, well, it is true that adrenaline breaks down into different metabolites.
Mm-hmm.
But the claims about adrenochrome kind of go a little bit further.
Oh, I bet they do.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, they link this adrenochrome production to something called mass suggestion.
Mass suggestion, okay.
Which is, it's this idea that when a large group of people experience these heightened emotions together, like, at a concert, a sporting event,
Right.
or a religious gathering, something like that,
Right.
they're saying that collective adrenaline rush could actually lead to visions.
Whoa.
And even hallucinations.
Now, I've been to some pretty wild concerts and sporting events, but never hallucinated.
Yeah.
But I can see how that idea might play into people's anxieties about things like crowd mentality.
Yeah, or even mass hysteria, right? Like losing control in a large group.
Totally.
So the transcript then goes on to describe this hypnotic session, and the subject, Diana, is guided through all these questions about adrenochrome. And let me tell you, her hypnotic journey gets pretty wild.
Oh, I'm all ears. What kind of wild are we talking here?
So she describes all these vivid images, like she's seeing religious figures, monsters, even dolls.
Oh.
Yeah, appearing and disappearing within everyday objects.
That's creepy.
Right?
Like, where are they coming from?
Well, the idea is that this collective belief, right, combined with all that adrenaline-like energy, could somehow manifest these visions.
Okay, now I'm picturing like a football stadium full of people seeing these like giant floating teddy bears. Like, that's kind of freaky.
It's like a shared hallucination almost.
Oh.
Right. So it plays into this cultural fascination we have with altered states of consciousness, I think.
Wait.
And it gets even weirder.
Okay, weirder than dolls appearing out of thin air. All right, lay it on me.
Okay, so she describes adrenochrome as this viscous, transparent substance that spreads like a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And it induces these feelings of relaxation.
Okay.
And, wait for it, levitation.
Levitation? Okay, now we're talking superhero stuff. I can totally see why this substance is so popular with all the conspiracy theories.
It has it all, right?
Oh.
Mystery. A good dose of the unbelievable. But, we do have to remember that we're dealing with one person's experience under hypnosis here.
True.
Which isn't, the most reliable method,
right,
scientifically speaking.
But for this deep dive, let's keep going.
Sure.
So we've got this hypnotized subject.
Yeah.
She's describing this mystical substance, hallucinations, maybe even defying gravity. But what does she say people actually do with it?
Well, that's where things take a bit of a darker turn.
Okay.
Diana describes adrenochrome being used in some pretty disturbing ways.
Like what?
One of the claims is that it's used by the military
Okay.
to enhance soldiers' aggression.
Enhance their aggression.
And distort their perception of the enemy.
So like they're basically giving soldiers a drug to make them more brutal.
Yeah.
That's a chilling thought. Like, it reminds me of those sci-fi movies about creating super soldiers, but with a much darker twist.
Yeah, it's a theme that seems to resonate with our fascination with power and that potential for human manipulation.
Right.
But again, we got to remember this is just one person's account under hypnosis. We have to be very careful about accepting it as fact.
Of course. But for the sake of this deep dive, what other uses for adrenochrome does she describe?
She also mentions its potential use in religious rituals.
Religious rituals.
Yeah.
Wow.
According to the transcript, adrenochrome could be used to induce feelings of awe, of power among followers, right?
Yeah.
Playing into that whole idea of mass suggestion and shared hallucinations that we were talking about.
So picture this, like a congregation drinks adrenochrome-laced Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
and suddenly, like, angels are descending from the ceiling. Makes you wonder, right?
Right.
Like, about the history of religious experiences.
Definitely an intriguing thought.
Yeah.
And perhaps unsurprisingly, she also describes it as being used as a recreational drug,
Good.
to induce hallucinations and euphoria.
Okay, so we've got military applications, religious rituals, recreational drug use. Is there anything this substance can't do, according to this hypnotic journey?
Well, according to her, it might even hold the secret to longer life.
Ooh.
And that's where things get truly, truly disturbing.
Uh-oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah. So Diana describes these visions of adrenochrome being harvested from children
Harvested from children.
in satanic rituals
Okay.
for its supposed life-extending properties.
That's horrific, and honestly, it's a claim that needs to be treated with extreme caution.
Absolutely. It's crucial to remember that this is where we really need to separate potential fact from likely fiction. There's a lot of speculation surrounding adrenochrome, and it's often tied to these very disturbing and unfounded rumors about child exploitation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a stark reminder of how these kinds of claims can exploit our deepest fears, especially when it comes to the safety of children. It's really tough, when you think about how these claims can prey on our fears for kids. But before we go too far down that road, let's go back for a second. We were talking about all the ways Diana described adrenochrome being used. Like, she mentioned the military and religious things, but also as a drug, right?
Right, like some kind of psychedelic trip. Is that something that comes up a lot in these adrenochrome conspiracies?
It does. The transcript says it causes hallucinations, a feeling of euphoria, which, that's not really that surprising when you think about it.
Hang us back.
Throughout history, people have always wanted to change their consciousness, right? Like ancient rituals or psychedelics today.
Oh. Yeah, it's like we're wired to push the boundaries of what's real and what we can experience. So I get how something like adrenochrome, with all this mystery and speculation, would become this blank canvas for people's fantasies about expanding their minds.
Exactly, and that's where the conspiracy theories come in, right? They fill in the gaps with speculation and exaggerated claims.
The transcript mentioned that the hypnotist was using this Crafazzi method, right?
Yeah.
It's all about uncovering secrets and past lives.
Yeah.
Do you think that could be, like, influencing where Diana's hypnotic journey went?
It's possible, yeah. If the method itself is focused on secrets, hidden knowledge, it might create a situation where the subject is more likely to go into those areas.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. The method shapes the information. Huh. That's really interesting.
It really shows how the way you ask questions can affect the answers you get.
Let's go back to Diana's experience for a minute. We talked about her saying that the military and religions use adrenochrome. Did she actually describe how it's given to people in those cases?
Yeah, she did. For example, she talked about soldiers being given this substance before going into battle.
Okay.
Suggesting that it's used to make them more aggressive and less sensitive to the horrors of war.
Wow, that's a really disturbing thought.
Yeah.
Almost dehumanizing.
Yeah.
It makes you question how far people are willing to go to get power and control, even if it means losing their humanity.
Definitely speaks to those darker parts of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But again, we really need to be careful about taking this as the truth.
Right.
There's no proof that any substance can really cause those kinds of changes in behavior.
What about in religious rituals? Did she describe any specific practices?
She describes this ritual where a group of people share a drink, believing that it's something sacred that gives them power. She even mentions a chalice, which, adds to that mystical, ritualistic feel.
A chalice. It's interesting, right? Like, it ties into our fascination with secret societies, ancient rituals, forbidden knowledge. It's like a modern-day Holy Grail, but with the darker side.
You got it. It taps into those old stories about wanting power, wanting to live forever, themes that we've been obsessed with forever.
Okay, now going back to this idea of mass suggestion, the concept that our emotions as a group can trigger the production of adrenochrome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty wild, right?
It is. The idea that we're all connected on some level, like psychically,
Yeah.
and that our feelings can affect each other's bodies.
It's like psychic energy or something.
Yeah.
Think about how quickly panic spreads in a crowd,
Mm.
or mob mentality.
All right.
There's definitely something to be said about the power of shared feelings,
For sure.
But is there actually any scientific backing for the claim that emotions can cause a specific substance like adrenochrome to be produced?
That's where things get a little fuzzy. We know that emotions can make our bodies release hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, but there's no evidence to say that they can directly make adrenochrome or anything with the effects described in the transcript.
So this mass suggestion thing, it's more of a metaphor than an actual biological process.
It seems that way, yeah. But the fact that it comes up in this hypnotic session and in so many conspiracy theories, it shows how powerful these ideas can be, even without scientific proof.
They tap into our fears, our desires, our longing to connect with each other, and maybe even our anxieties about being controlled. Which brings us back to that other big theme in this transcript.
Yeah.
The elite and how they supposedly use adrenochrome.
Right. These conspiracy theories always paint the elite as this shadowy group operating in secret, pulling the strings, manipulating everything for their own benefit.
And adrenochrome in this story becomes their secret weapon, the thing that gives them power and long life. It's like a modern-day philosopher's stone, giving them access to forbidden knowledge and immortality.
It plays on those age-old anxieties about who's really in control and whether we have any say in our own lives.
It's a way to make sense of a world that can feel really chaotic and unpredictable. You create this narrative of a powerful hidden enemy.
Exactly. And the fact that these theories often bring children into it, it adds this whole other layer of fear and moral outrage,
Right.
Makes them even more powerful.
It's like this really potent mix of fear, fascination, and anger.
Yeah, you're right. But it's important to remember that these stories are often used to demonize people in power, which can be dangerous and counterproductive in the end.
We need to be critical, look at the evidence, and not fall into these easy, harmful generalizations.
Exactly. The truth is often a lot more complicated than these black and white stories suggest.
Speaking of the truth, let's go back to Diana's claims about adrenochrome being harvested from children. Did she say anything about how that supposedly happens?
This is where it gets particularly disturbing. She talks about children being put through trauma, maybe even abuse,
Oh, wow.
to make them scared and produce adrenaline, which then supposedly creates adrenochrome.
That's just awful. And I think it's really important to say again that there's no evidence to support this. These are just speculations, likely fueled by those pre-existing fears we have about child safety and exploitation.
Exactly. It's so important to be critical, especially with this kind of information.
Right.
Sensationalism often overshadows the facts.
But the fact that these claims are out there, that people believe them, shows how powerful and widespread these stories can be, and how easily they can play on our fears.
It's a reminder that we need to think critically, especially when it comes to things like this. It's easy to get swept up in the fear and anger, but we have to look at the evidence, find credible sources, and not spread harmful stereotypes and misinformation.
We need to be smarter about the information we consume, especially online.
Right.
Now, changing gears a bit, let's talk about the hypnosis part of this. What are your thoughts on using hypnosis as a way to explore things, especially with sensitive topics like this?
It's complicated for sure. Hypnosis can be a powerful tool to access memories, explore the subconscious, but it's also very subjective and suggestible.
So the information you get from hypnosis could be easily influenced by the hypnotist's questions, what the subject already believes, even the environment they're in.
Exactly. And that's why we have to be really careful about how we understand information from hypnosis, especially when it involves things like trauma, abuse, or rituals.
It's like the line between what's a real memory and what's imagined can get blurred.
Yeah, and there's also the risk of creating false memories or making existing biases even stronger.
So with this specific transcript, we need to be extra cautious about just believing everything Diana says, right?
Right.
Her experience under hypnosis might be real to her, but it's filtered through her own perceptions, beliefs, and and the way hypnosis works.
It's one data point.
Right.
One person's experience that may or may not be true. That's why it's so important to look for other evidence, consider other explanations, and not jump to conclusions based on one person's story.
It all comes back to critical thinking and maintaining a healthy skepticism.
Absolutely. And maybe even more importantly, it's about understanding the potential damage that spreading misinformation can cause.
Especially when it comes to things like child exploitation and ritualistic abuse. I mean, those rumors can have real-world consequences.
Sensationalism might sell, but we have to remember that real people are affected by these stories.
That's a really sobering thought.
Yeah.
So what do we do with this information? We've explored the claims, the speculation, the ethics.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
That's the tough part, isn't it? We can't just ignore these stories because they reflect real anxieties and fears that people have.
Right.
But we also can't just accept them without question because that can lead to more harm and division.
So what's the answer?
Maybe it starts with recognizing how powerful these stories are, understanding how they work, and developing those critical thinking skills to really evaluate them.
And maybe it's also about having more empathy and understanding. Realizing that even people who believe in these theories, they're often driven by real concerns, even if their conclusions are off.
Absolutely. It's about finding a way to have these conversations without shutting people down or demonizing them for having different beliefs.
That's a tough challenge.
It is.
But I think it's a really important one. I feel like we've gone pretty deep into this topic today.
We have. We've explored the science, the speculation, the psychology,
The ethics?
the ethics of this whole adrenochrome thing.
And it's safe to say that there are way more questions than answers at this point.
There always are, right? Especially when you're dealing with something so mysterious and full of speculation as adrenochrome.
But isn't that what makes these deep dives so interesting?
Absolutely. It's about the journey of exploration, the process of questioning, analyzing, putting things together, even when you end up with more questions than you started with.
Right. And hopefully along the way we learn a little bit about ourselves and the world around us. Speaking of journeys, before we wrap up, there's one more thing from the transcript that I found really interesting. It's where Diana talks about how animals react to this supposed adrenochrome cloud.
Ah, yeah, that was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She talks about seeing all these animals like lions, tigers coming across this cloud and they don't react the same way humans do. Like lions seem to ignore it. Tigers turn away.
It's like they sense something but aren't affected by it the same way humans supposedly are.
Exactly.
Almost like they're immune to its power or something.
It's like if this substance is really as powerful as they say it is, why wouldn't it affect animals too?
Right. It makes you question the whole idea that it's this universally powerful thing.
Yeah.
It suggests that maybe the effects of adrenochrome, as described in the transcript, are more about how we perceive it and what we believe than actual biological processes.
Exactly. It highlights the role of the mind, of suggestion, and those pre-existing stories we tell ourselves in shaping our experiences.
It's a reminder that what we experience as reality is often subjective, filtered through our own perceptions and beliefs.
Well said. So where does this leave us? We've explored the science, the speculation, the ethics, the psychology of this whole adrenochrome thing.
We've gone down the rabbit hole, examined the evidence, and found more questions than answers along the way.
And maybe that's the whole point. This deep dive wasn't about proving or disproving anything specific. It was about encouraging you, the listener, to think critically, to question what you hear, and to approach information with a healthy dose of skepticism, especially in this day and age where there's so much misinformation out there.
Because in the end, the most powerful tool we have isn't some secret substance or hidden truth. It's our ability to think, to question, and to figure out what's real and what's not.
Well said. So as we wrap up this exploration, we leave you with this. Is adrenochrome a real thing with dangerous uses? Or is it a product of our fears? Or maybe just a metaphor for how powerful beliefs and perceptions can be? We've given you the pieces. Now it's up to you to connect the dots.
And maybe, just maybe, in doing so, you'll discover something even more interesting than the answers themselves. The ability to think critically, to question without fear, and to navigate this complex world with wisdom and discernment.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep thinking for yourselves.
Yeah, it's almost like we're all wearing these different glasses that change how we see the world.
Mm.
But those glasses, they're shaped by our experiences,
Yeah.
what we believe, even the stuff we read and watch.
You're absolutely right. It shows how powerful stories are, how they affect what we think about the world, whether those stories are based on science or just speculation or somewhere in between.
This whole deep dive has really made me think about, how careful we got to be about sharing stuff, especially online. It's crazy how things can get out of control,
Mm.
especially when fear gets involved.
For sure. There's so much information out there these days. It's more important than ever to be smart about what we believe, to ask questions, check sources, and be careful about those claims that sound too good to be true or just way too outrageous.
Like that saying, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And when we're talking about something as serious as child exploitation,
Yeah.
well, that's when it gets really serious.
Absolutely. We got to protect those who can't protect themselves. And that means being critical of stories that could put kids at risk.
So how do we do that? How do we acknowledge those fears, but still, encourage people to think critically and share information responsibly? It feels like walking a tightrope.
It is a tough balance. I think it starts with education, teaching people how to be media savvy and think critically from a young age. We need to give folks the tools to navigate this crazy world of information.
And maybe it's about encouraging empathy too, creating spaces where people can talk about their concerns and questions without feeling judged.
That's so important. It's about building a culture where we're curious and we question things, not one based on fear and division.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today. We looked at the claims, the science, the psychology, and the ethics of this whole adrenochrome thing. And honestly, I'm leaving with more questions than answers.
That's the beauty of a deep dive like this, right? It's not always about finding all the answers. It's about sparking curiosity and making you want to explore more.
And along the way, hopefully, we learned a little something about ourselves and the world around us. So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this final thought. Is adrenochrome a real thing with these scary uses? Or is it a product of our anxieties or just a way to show how powerful our beliefs can be? We've given you the pieces. Now it's your turn to put them together.
Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep thinking for yourselves. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.